Oh, hello, good evening, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 18 of Axiom Flux. Tonight's topic is to do with the UK attacks that's transpired in London last night, I think it was, or the night before. We've got some good guests with us here today. We've got the Stav the man, whatever you want to call him. We've got Paul, we've got PJ, we've got someone who's just come in on the group called Tower. So we're going to have some good chats tonight and a bit of fun and try and break down, and discuss, what's been going on over the last couple of days and what we think maybe we can do about things, how we can improve the situation, what our government's doing or not doing, lack thereof of response, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to put it over now to whoever wants to pipe in first and discuss what's going on and give us the lowdown. So who wants to start us off tonight?
I'll just say good evening, Jeff. How you doing? All right?
I'm very good, mate. How are you, Stav?
Yeah, I'm fine. Well, I'm all right, but what a mess again, eh? Another attack in London. Third attack that we've had in 3 months. Was it London last time, Westminster Bridge, Tower Bridge, and area around Parliament, whatever. And then we had Manchester, didn't we, a week ago? And now we've had this last night, so it seems to be becoming a weekly occurrence. And I think there was something else, that some guy in Parliament with a knife in between there somewhere as well. And yeah, it all looks like it's escalating. Whatever people think it is, there's I think there's one or two of us on here that perhaps have not personal connections, but know people that were involved in perhaps the Manchester one, and can say, yeah, that happened, and people were in hospital, people were killed. So because there's a lot of theories out there. You go on Facebook and you see people say, oh, it's a false flag, it's all staged, crisis actors, they're all dummies. And I really don't know about this world now, Jeff. I'm getting so confused with it. It's as John Harris would call the democracy, or false democracy, or whatever, an illusion. I think the world is turning into that, mate. So, but anyway,
I think he said something like the world is a stage and we're all actors in it, and I think I tend to agree on that. I think there's definitely some stuff going on that we're not meant to know, that we're not being told. To do with the intelligence services, the government, and their part in it, or if there is a part in it. I think there's definitely a lot of stuff going on that's covert. There definitely seems to be an agenda which we can sort of, I think we can reasonably assess based on the fact that there seems to be a complete lack of action and response from the government, apart from to just put a load of police and armed police on the street.
Just that actual point, Jeff, sends up red flags. But first of all, I'd like to send out my condolences for the actual victims and their families.
Yeah, indeed.
But this is like Gladio on steroids.
Exactly.
And it's a way of a social engineering. I really do believe this is a social engineering exercise, so the government can push through their draconian laws and what have you, what they want pushed through. It's so sick, and it is so, well, I'm just lost for words because it is so sick. And the echoes are coming through of Germany back in the 1930s, that this is and that was all staged, and this is what my guts is telling me, and it's definitely Gladio on steroids anyway.
I definitely think there's something going on that that's not good. But yeah, as you said there, you know, my condolences go out to the victims. And some people will ask, they'll say, well, was there really any actual victims? And from what I've been seeing on social media, people saying, yeah, they know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that actually was involved, or somebody that was injured.
Yeah.
So I think there was
this is the actual sickness of it now, Jeff. They are actually killing people to get through their policies and what have you. This is the sickness of it now.
Well, if it is indeed that, I mean, you know, I can't say whether that is the case. I mean, I can speculate. I would think that you're probably along the right lines there, Paul. But the only thing I know for any actual fact is that there was indeed victims. Now, some people will say this was a false flag event. I think it's important to make it clear that just because it's a false flag event doesn't mean to say that you don't get victims, because you do. Because
well, look at 9/11 and the Liberty, the ship which Israel attacked. Liberty.
Yeah,
there was actual victims. Sorry, go ahead, Jeff. Sorry, mate.
That's all right, mate. I mean, you know, there's been all sorts of things in the past that we've known about, like the Gulf of Tonkin. Is that what you were talking about? USS Liberty and things like that. Yeah, no, I was just pointing out to our viewers and that yeah, if you hear somebody say that they believe it was a false flag attack, it doesn't mean that there was no victims, because with a false flag attack, you do get victims. I mean, for an example of that, you might consider to be 9/11. A lot of people say that 9/11 was an inside job. There were genuine victims. But, you know, if it was a false flag event, it means that it was carried out with a thing called the Hegelian dialectic, which is to bring about a problem, reaction, solution scenario. In other words, what that means is if the government wants to achieve getting from A to B, like, for example, they wanted to invade Iraq, then they'll create a problem, wait for the public reaction. That's the problem reaction part of it. And then, of course, the solution is what they wanted to do in the first place, which is to carry out attacks, name it, terror attacks. Well, we've had attacks on all sorts. We've had the drug wars, attacks on drugs. We've had attacks on, you know, so-called terrorists, if there is such a thing.
Jeff, can I just something for you? Carry on. I'll let you carry on. Just one little thought.
Carry on, mate.
Yeah, I'd like to pass my condolences on to all the families that have lost loved ones, and I believe that they were all real. Okay, and I'll tell you the reason for that. Ask yourselves, anybody, do you believe that all those people in Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, thousands or hundreds of thousands of people have all been killed? Do you believe that? Because if you believe that, then you've got to have some type of belief that, oh, because it's on our soil, oh, it can't possibly be real, because, you know, it doesn't happen. They wouldn't do that sort of thing. And the other thing is, there's a heavy bias in the last few years that I've been looking at all this on the fault being our government. Our governments, it's all their fault, which is, you know, most of it is. But you have to factor in, they can't do this on their own. You know, if they're organising, you know, with secret society, etc., and all involved with financing these terrorists, whatever, they can't do it alone. So these people who commit these atrocities are just as much to blame as our own government. I just thought I'd like to get that out there, Jeff.
Yeah. No, I agree, mate. And I think what we have to do is, you know, look at things in a sort of another perspective. And I'm not saying by any means that I condone those actions, because those actions were terrific atrocities. And I'd like to also put out my condolences to the families that were involved in that event. My heartfelt condolences go out to those people, because it is awful. I don't think people realise it's not just the victim, it's the victims' families, what they go through. then they're probably left asking questions why this has happened and everything else. And I think we also have to look into the point that, like you said, with Iraq, for example, that we went to war with Iraq based on a lie of weapons of mass destruction that were never actually existed, and over a million people have died in Iraq. Now that's a million people with million families, you know, brother.
Yeah, and Colin Powell.
Sorry, say that again, Paul.
Go ahead, Paul.
What did you say, Paul?
Yeah, well, you know, when there's manipulation and there's a covert going on, when you get people like Colin Powell holding up a file saying this is anthrax and this, that and the other, and even up to date, when you come to the Manchester bombing, there may have been a bomb, but they said it was a particularly a big and sophisticated bomb, yet there were still the fittings there where the people were dead on the ground. Yes, people may have been dead on the ground, but they are blowing it out of proportion. It's horrible because people are being hurt, but blowing it out of proportion to suit their social engineering to bring about the draconian measures they want to bring in.
Right. Yeah, I'd say that was a reasonable assessment of, you know, what's going on. But I think what we have to do is, I mean, somebody said, and I can't remember who made this quote, he said, if a person dies, it's a tragedy. If 1 million people die, it's a statistic. Because most people can't really comprehend or think about what exactly 1 million people is. I mean, we in Iraq and Afghanistan, we've used we haven't just killed people, but we've used depleted uranium munitions. Now, I don't think people realize what a depleted uranium munitions are. It's bullets and bombs and things like that are made from depleted uranium, which hardens the material that they use, and it's radioactive, and I think I can't remember, I think it's called depleted uranium 238.
There's plutonium, there's plutonium which goes direct into your blood system, direct into your organs, and you know this is so invasive, and this is people's lives. And people are sitting in their nice sanitized living rooms thinking, well, that's over there. What they've got to realise now, it's come over here. And I've been saying this for years to people. Yes, it is over there, but if you ignore it like people are ignoring it, it's going to be here. And I'm afraid to say, I'm horribly right and I hate it. I don't like being right when it comes to things like this.
Well, yeah, what I was going to say, Paul, was these depleted uranium munitions, they're radioactive, and it's got a half-life of 4.5 billion years. Now, I don't know if people know what half-life is. It means that the strength of the radioactivity decays to half its original power, if you like, but it takes 4.5 billion years to do so. So for it to become at such a low level, for things to go back to normal, it could take a hell of a lot longer than that, a hell of a lot longer than 4.5 billion years. So the damage we have caused, we've left a ticking time bomb in Iraq, Afghanistan, places like that, where children are being born with birth defects, you know, kids being born with 2 heads and missing limbs and things like that. It's an absolute disgrace. And
the US soldiers that are served over there, they've come home and they bring it home and it's in their bodies and they're passing it on to newborns through their wives.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, it gets passed on through the sperm. So when they come back and you know, make love to their partners, where they're passing this on. So yeah, it's absolute disgrace. And I think Tony Blair and the elites that were involved in making these mistakes, the people that made the call to go to war in these countries, need to be held to account instead of let off. I mean, Tony Blair, he's still going back in the public and saying, oh, I want to get involved in politics again. Why the hell would we let somebody like Tony Blair back in politics after his track record? And they had the cheek to call him a peace, to make him a peace envoy.
That's the biggest joke of all. He is a war criminal, and he has been found so by an international court in Kuala Lumpur.
Exactly, he's been banned from entering certain countries because of you know, what they found about Tony Blair. And I mean, of course, George Bush was part of it as well, and it all seems to be linked to the 9/11 thing that was the Kickstarter for it all, if you like. So it's absolutely disgusting what's going on. They need to hold these people. These people need to be held to account. They need to be arrested. They need to be tried in a common law court, whether it's in The Hague or wherever. And you know, there needs to be some closure for the people that have suffered as a result. And this suffering is still continuing to this day in the result of terror attacks on the UK, terror attacks in Germany, Sweden, all over Europe, which the thing is, what people forget is whenever there's a war, it doesn't end when the war finishes. It lingers. The emotions, the anger, the betrayal, all that lingers on in the people's minds. And
a lot of these so-called fundamentalists are the ones where they've had the whole families wiped out and they're the only ones left. Do you think they're going to hold a grudge? I really do think so.
Absolutely.
Enough to blow themselves up in a mass load of people around them.
I think we have to, I think we have to, you know, understand that these people are angry. I mean, they're pissed, and who wouldn't be? I mean, you know, if I had a family and I suddenly lost my entire family due to a bomb dropping on their building or something, you know, I'd be pissed, and I would bear that grudge for a long, long time. I think it's a natural response for anybody to want to bear that grudge. You know, if somebody's taken away their loved ones, people that they care about, that they love, that have been a part of their life for a long time, you know, we need to sort of really show respect equally for all the people that have been victims of these crimes, because that's what it is. Let's face it, the start of wisdom is to be able to say things by their true names. So you may call it terror, you may call it war, I call it murder. That's what it is. It's murder. It's killings and it's murder. So, you know, I think there needs to be that recognition. And if anybody else wants to pipe in and, you know, add to that, feel free.
Yeah. Sorry, Paul. You go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, it is murder. I'm in total agreement with you, because they've not gone through the due process of law to get them found guilty and then maybe put in a firing squad or the electric chair, what have you, and see the justice which they so deserve. And yeah, it is murder, but yeah, as people must understand, these people, they've had their families, they've had their cousins, the wider families, all exterminated by the West. And what's such a good recruiting tool for fundamentalist terrorists, eh? What's such a good recruiting tool? Going blowing up other people's families in other countries, thinking you're sanitised from it.
And then, of course, the stupidity after it is that they invite them to come and live in our country when they're naturally going to want a bit of revenge and a bit of payback.
Yeah, which is the weaponized migration, and that is what it is. It's weaponized migration.
Indeed, indeed.
I suppose the question would have to be, if all of this bombing and taking over countries in the Middle East, if the UK said we don't want nothing more to do with it, and we're pulling all our troops and we're having nothing to do with NATO, we have nothing to do with the military-industrial complex of the Americans and the rest of it. The question is now, do you think all of the future attacks will stop if the UK brings its army out. Would you think these attacks will stop like that?
No, no.
So now we're in a position where it's all very well having this indoctrinized, and I think it is, and I see it all on well, I don't go on there much anymore, face ask, because you know it is what it is now. I don't go. All I see is this white supremacist guilt being put around everywhere. Now, I didn't go myself personally. I don't know any of my family members that went out there. They didn't go under my orders. It was nothing to do personally with any of the British public, because if you remember, when Tony Blair and all the rest of it and all this rubbish about weapons of mass destruction, there was, you know, some people, this is the thing. There
was millions, millions down in protest against it.
There was
Tony
millions, you know, and I say the word millions because now all I see now is people putting out mistruths now that up to maybe a million. Well, there was more than a million that went to London.
Yes.
I think there was between 2 and 3 million people that protested. I'm not exactly sure of the figure. But,
so not in our name, not in Joe Public's name. And I think we can all sort of stay together that the majority of decent English, British, whatever, will stand under that.
I mean, really, we've got to understand we are a defrocked democracy.
Yeah.
We are totally defrocked democracy. We are being taken over from within.
Absolutely.
And enemies from within are more dangerous than standing armies without.
And the worst thing, in my thoughts, it's only my thoughts, and I'm sure most people on the left side of the political type of thing, which I don't believe in anyway, any of it, right, will probably disagree with me. Hanging out welcome mats to millions of immigrants from Africa continent, mostly West Africa and Mid Africa. We're not talking about Syrians here. We're not talking about Iraqis here. We're talking about 70% of immigrants, economic immigrants. Do you think that will heal the scar? No way in this world. No way. I don't believe that.
We're being fed lies that that we've got refugees coming over, but in fact, a lot of the people that are coming over, like you said, Stav, are from Africa, and they're not refugees. They're not seeking asylum or whatever. They're just economic migrants looking for a better life, trying to get some more money and what have you, and an easier life.
But it is absolutely strange how the majority of the economic migrants are of young male fighting age.
Yes, and they've been trying to feed us the lie that they're children, and of course, they're sort of, anything from sort of 15, 16-year-old up to about 25, 26 years old, something like that. So we're being, they pull on our heartstrings by trying to tell us it's children when it's not children, it's grown men, and like you say, at that sort of high testosterone age.
Yeah. How can they not expect, if they throw a beehive in a house, not to get stung?
No, that's right. I'm not going to sit by and allow these people who think that they can heal scars and create this one globalist homogenous people throughout Europe and everything's going to be honky-dory. I don't believe that pipe dream. That can never happen.
They're living in cloud cuckoo land stuff.
Well, absolutely. They haven't lived. It's like I put an article up on another social media platform about exactly this. And, to think that, by bringing in loads and loads of people from different parts of the world, mostly Africa, people don't realize that there's going to be over 1 billion Africans within 15 years. The population, 2025, 2030, they're saying the population of Africa is going to be over 1 billion people. 1 billion people. Now, you know, you're talking about a lot of people coming across that's going to influx Europe. And listen, I'm not going to stand by and lose all of my freedoms that my father, rightly or wrongly, whatever we all think about the world wars and how they were arranged, and Bolshevism and reparations and Balfour treaties, all of that stuff.
Which was all socially engineered, was it not, stuff?
It was, but at the end of my old man put his uniform on, and my mum worked in the munitions factories being bombed by V1s and V2s. Yeah. All of that, they were fighting for sovereignty and for freedom. They wouldn't even enter their head. They wouldn't have a clue what we know now. But at the end of the day, they were fighting so that, you know, their children could have some sort of freedom in a sovereign country that rules by its own people. That's all my father said to me, because I tried to press him on a lot of things about the war, bless him, and he just said basically, you don't want to know, okay? So that's as far as I got with my dear old dad until he died. So, but the fact is, he did tell me the reasons why he went, and the reason in his mind he went, and that was for that reason. So there we are. We can only go with what we're told. But I'm not going to stand by and lose our culture, our individuality, our free will, freedom of speech, and all of that just because of a younger generation that wants nanny government to clear their poo from their bottom so they don't have to work again in their life and go to university graduations with no meanings at the end of it. I'm not going to allow that to happen. It's as simple as that.
I think it's already started happening. To be honest, I mean, I wanted to have a rant when I come on. I'm still going to have this rant, by the way, because I am pissed. Because somebody accused me yesterday. I wanted to discuss the subject of what should be done to protect the British citizens regarding what's happened and transpired with all these terror attacks, or so-called alleged terror attacks, I should say. You can't talk about it. You just simply, as soon as you mention, if you say Muslims, if you say, let's call it what it is, if it's Muslims, right? It's not racist. I'm not talking about racism. I'm not a racist person. I'm happy. I mean, Sikhs are lovely people. You can have Sikhs come into the country. They've worked hard and what have you, and this and that. I've got no problem with people that fully integrate. What's happening is not cultural integration at all. It's an invasion. It's as simple as that, because they don't want to integrate. They don't want to accept our way of life, our freedoms. What they want to do is install Sharia. I've seen it time and time again at some of these demonstrations and marches that these Muslims, radical Muslims, have done, and they've all said, this is going to be a Sharia state. We're going to impose the will of Allah and all this sort of stuff on the UK people, which means because we're not Muslim, we have to have our heads chopped off. Now, if you think that's acceptable because they believe that infidels or non-believers should have their heads chopped off, that is not cultural integration by any sense of the word. Now, also, if they...
That is domination. That is domination. That's infiltrated domination.
It's conquering. They're conquering us. They're trying to conquer our nation and turn it into their nation. It's as simple as that. Now, that I cannot tolerate. I've tried to mention it to people and said and put forward ideas of how we can rectify this, what we can do to minimize the risk of these attacks and so forth. And as soon as you say anything racist, straight away, you can't even talk about it. We have to recognize first that there's a problem, and there is a problem. There is
the problem is the majority of the people, the younger than the millennials, they've been brainwashed, because anything over that, we understand what's going on. Like, I've barely spoken to you yet. I'm in total agreement with you, Jeffrey, because we're of the same age group. We understand, we can see it. We know what's happened. Where the millennial and under, they've all been brainwashed with this political correctness, and you can't say anything bad about them, although they are being bad.
I know, it's absolute madness, Paul. I mean, they've gone down this road now where they're talking about all this transgender stuff as well, and you know, recognise that that they've got to be. You can't call them a male, you can't call them a female. I don't know what you're supposed to call them. Some people have said you call them non-binary and that, and all they're doing is
don't these transgenders and the gay people, homosexuals, don't they understand their heads are on the chopping blocks when the Muslims come in and take over?
Exactly. Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there, I think. And this is the thing. I mean, what they're doing is pussyfooting around. They're not dealing with the situation. If I run this country, I would be saying how first to protect our own people. That would be the very first question. That's the first job. That is the very first job of government, is to protect its own citizens.
And if they do not do that, they are committing treason, which they have done. They have committed treason. And we've got to start saying it for what it is. It is downright treason.
Exactly. I mean, we've got a social contract. We pay taxes which fund our services, i.e. the police and the army. Now, whether they put the police or the army on the street, there also has to be policies put in place by our government to the effect that we can minimize the risks that are there. For example, I mean, I suggested an idea, maybe if it's getting this bad and it's going to accelerate and get worse, then we have to take action to stem the not just the influx of migrants or immigrants or whatever you want to call them, but also remove some of the non-British UK citizen, UK non-British born Muslims from the country, starting with the ones in the prisons, because the ones in the prisons have become breeding grounds for radicalization, apparently. They're even radicalizing or turning British people into Muslims and things like that. So, you know, I think what we have to do is take a very serious look at what we're doing. If we've got non-British born Muslims in UK prisons, why are we keeping them in the prisons? We should be sending them back to their place of origin, in my opinion. Now, to be called a racist for expressing that opinion, to me,
no, that's not racism. That's sensibility.
It's just,
and we've got to get rid of sustainability and put in sensibility.
Exactly, it's practicality. It's being, you know, it's being practicable and trying to solve the problem, or to at least eliminate the risk of the problem that exists. And for me to be called racist for that, for expressing that opinion, is extremely annoying. This is the thing, they play the race card too much. It's gone beyond a joke. We have to be able to talk about this as a nation. People need to be asking questions and talking about this, because if we don't talk about this now, we're going to find Britain as a smouldering, burning pile of crap.
Well, the narrative is being controlled. It's being controlled by government through the media. Yeah. The media is not for the people like it used to be, that they reported on things for the good of the people and the good of society. Now they report it's the speaking, it's the megaphone for the government.
Yeah. Well, this is it. I mean, we've got a social contract. You know, the government should be doing their job and saying, what can we do? What policies can we implement to reduce the risk? I mean, if ultimately, I mean, somebody said, well, my ideas are a bit extreme, but we're living in extreme times, in case you hadn't noticed. And if we leave it too late, the fear is that we're going to be left in a place which is just a pile of burning wreck of a wasteland.
We're getting there very fast, Jeff. We're getting there very fast.
this is the worry. This is the worry for me, Paul. I think it's very genuine, a genuine concern. So, you know, so I think the government have to ask, well, can we deport all the non-British born UK Muslims, or can we at least get rid of, I mean, we've got these jihadis or whatever, 3,000 of them or so that are on this watch list, where they're put back on the streets and they're being, you know, basically observed by the police or the intelligence services. They're being kept an eye on. Well, you know, if they're not British born, surely we could just, you know,
well, they're doing a good job of keeping an eye on them when they're carrying out these attacks.
Yeah. But this is the thing. So what we have to look at is, you know, people need to start putting pressure on the government. They need to start writing to their MPs, if that's all we can do. Not that they will listen to us, but I mean, a massive petition, a massive protest in London to say... I don't know one politician that's actually speaking about it.
Well, I got something here, Jeff. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go for it.
I've got on screen. Can you see that on screen share? Yeah.
Yeah, we can see that.
Can you enlarge it?
Pardon?
Is there any chance you can enlarge it?
I not really. I don't think so, because it's a PDF file. It's a file I got earlier on off of the government's own.
To enlarge it, it's Control and Plus. So enlarge it a bit bigger.
Control and what? Sorry?
Control and Plus. The ad sign.
Oh, right. Hang on.
Should do it, yep. You know, add it, yeah.
How's that?
It'll make it...
Is that any better?
That's still the same to me, Stav. Have you tried clicking the little square next to the cross in the top right hand corner?
That'll get rid of it, won't it?
No, the square next to it, to the left of it.
That one? Yeah, I'll just shrink it down. Right.
Well, never mind. Read it.
Can you read it, Paul?
I can't read it, but if you can read it, I trust that you're reading it exactly what's on there.
Okay, well, what it is I'm sure you can see that it's 6 terrorist and extremist prisoners, okay? This is a PDF document. It's from the gov.org, so it's their own stuff. This is what the prisons have actually released on data about the prisoners they hold under terrorists and extremists. And it says here, the number of people in custody either convicted and sentenced for a terrorism-related offence or on remand pending trial is provided by the National Offender Management Service, there we go, and the Scottish Prison Service. Data on terrorist and extremist prisoners is provided on a quarterly basis and provides a point-in-time indication of the number of individuals in custody. It does not necessarily indicate flow, okay, we take that into consideration. Which is the prison service identifies and classifies terrorist and extremist prisoners according to different definitions. And first it says terrorism legislation or terrorism related, which means individuals who have been convicted and sentenced for offence under terrorism legislation or terrorism related offences under other legislation. And then we have domestic extremists or separatists, members of groups that originate in the UK, often associated with single-issue protesters who seek to further their cause by committing criminal acts. This can include extreme left or right-wing groups, animal rights extremists, and lone actor extremists. Currently, the majority of prisoners in the custody identified as domestic extremists belong to animal rights groups or far right groups, you know, like EDL, BNP, they're calling them, all that sort of stuff. Oh, neo-Nazis, of course.
Yes,
so what we got here?
I might just say something. When they're talking about far right group, well, people forget that the Tory party is a far right group.
Exactly.
Labour under Tony Blair was a far right group.
Yep. Well, this is the nonsense, right? Well, what we got here, I mean, bear in mind, these are government figures, okay? It says on the 31st of December 2015, there were 168 individuals in prison classed as terrorists or extremist prisoners. 143 were being held having been convicted of or on remand for terrorism-related offences. 25 were classed as domestic extremists or separatists. Now, what we got here is a little table, okay? Number of terrorist extremist prisoners in custody. 31st of December each year from 2011 to 2015, right? It says here 2011, 102 terrorists and 17 extremists, total 119. 2012, 99 terrorists and 22 extremists, 121. 2013, 100 terrorists, 47 extremists, 147. 2014, 127 terrorists, 59 extremists, 186. 2015, 143 terrorists, 25 extremists, 168 in total. Now, what it's saying there is, you know, there's a difference between extremists and terrorists, but they kind of treat them all. But they kind of treat them all the same. You know, they're going to put you inside if you're an extremist or a terrorist, obviously. So
yeah, well, I think they're actually regarding people like fracking protesters as extremists.
Yes, yeah. This is the thing. Now, if we go down here, it says 6.61 ethnicity and religion. Prisoners are asked to self-define their ethnicity and religion when entering custody, with this information recorded on the prisoner management system. On the 31st of December 2015, 57% of the prisoners in custody for terrorism-related offences self-defined as Asian or Asian British, and only 10% as white. In contrast, 92% of those in prison classed as extremists self-defined as white ethnicity, one Asian and an Asian British, and one as a Chinese or other. So what they're saying is that the guys who say they are terrorists and they've been committed for terrorist acts, i.e. bombing people, blowing them up, killing them, whatever, right, are Asian, right? Mostly, they're a higher percentage than the whites who declare themselves as white when they go in, and their ethnicity is a small percent, is 92%, but that's under extremism. So what we're saying here is basically, you know, it's basically most of the white people. I mean, you know, we've got to talk about this because it's called ethnicity. I mean, if people say that's racist to make a remark on ethnicity, well, the world has gone bloody mad. It really has. But what I'm saying is to define ethnicity, okay? And people want to go on about race and all this.
Well, they're trying to blur the lines, so anybody then that disagrees with the government, they can chuck them in prison or chuck them out the country. Whereas the ones that are committing crimes against property or persons, they're the ones that should be deported.
Yeah, well, that's right, Paul. And this little pie graph here pretty much tells you the story. Chart number 19, number of terrorism-related prisoners in custody on the 31st of December 2015 by self-defined ethnicity, right? 82 of them, right, which is the large portion here, are Asian or Asian British, okay? Just remember that. This is terrorism-related. This isn't extremist, this is terrorism. So 82, right, are Asian or Asian British. 27 are black or black British, right? Unrecorded 10, white 14, mixed 9. So the vast majority self-defined ethnicity are Asians by a long chalk, 3/4, okay? So if we go down to the next pie here, pie chart, this is number of extremist prisoners in custody on 31st 2050, self-defined ethnicity.
Can I ask you something?
White is 23%, right? Only one Asian British, and one Chinese.
Can I ask, when they say Asian, are they referring to, they're not referring to people, I think it's a bit of a bad term to use, a loose term, if you like.
Pakistani, Middle East.
Yeah, but you could call somebody from India an Asian. You could call somebody from China an Asian. You could call
exactly. They're using a broad brushstroke.
Right.
What is East? It's okay. It's East. It's Eastern. It's Eastern people. The continent of Asia. All right, old lady.
I would say probably more people from the Middle East rather than the Orient side East.
Well, is the Middle East the Asian continent or Europe?
Well, it's the Asian continent.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely. Let's not get blurred with, oh, Turkey's going to be part of the EU, so it's now part of the European. No, it's not. It's part of Asia Minor. It's part of the Asian continent.
Right.
Well, come on, remember our old schooling here, Jeff. You know, let's not get wrapped up in this new type of schooling nonsense. But anyway, that's what I was saying. But my point of this is, right, there's no doubt from these figures, if you believe them, their government, that's what the prisoners' office records, the government's records, the police records, this is, you know, it's obviously it's released from the prison records and that, and these are people who, when they and do their term, they, you know, they say themselves what they are, okay? And right. if we go further down, it will say here is the religions. An overwhelming majority, 97% of prisoners in custody for terrorism offences on December 2000 declared they were Muslim. 97% on terrorism.
Yeah.
Declared they were Muslim. Okay? So these are the figures that the government, their own figures, they go by. So you know, so it's just prisoners were considered extremists, so they were of no religion and 10 of various Christian denominations.
To me, this is not a problem of race. It's a problem of religion. It's a
absolutely
of these ideologies that are not necessarily ideologies of peace, that are incompatible with our Western traditions, cultures, and values. You know, I mean, I'm a very freedom-loving person. I want to live in a society where I'm free to be able to do anything I like, as long as I don't cause harm, injury, or loss.
Exactly.
All this excessive legislation, and legislation it seems to be used more and more to blur the lines. Like Paul was saying earlier on, they're using all this sort of stuff to blur the lines.
Yeah, well, the thing is with that, Jeff, the only thing is with that, these people, right, these people, their indoctrination, their religion is their life. They do not accept common law. That's a man-made law.
Right.
They will not accept a man-made law. You can do what you like to them. They will not accept a man-made law. You can put them in prisons. They will not accept a man-made law.
Common law is the bedrock law of their country. So therefore, if they cannot follow their bedrock law, they should be extradited.
But they've actually, with their own admission, you know, given their ethnicity, their religion, they said, you know, we were in prison. Okay, fair cop, you caught us, you put us in prison, but you're holding us here against our will and against our religion.
Right. Well, this is the thing. This is where we've got the problem. It should come back down to common law, ultimately. Do no harm, do no loss. It's as simple as that. It's not asking a lot. All it's asking is for common sense.
It's so simplicity in itself. And when they keep coming out with all these different laws and statute add-ons, they are complicating the issue and making it harder to get things done.
I'd go further than that, actually, Paul. I would say that all this legislation is undoing the law, literally.
Yeah.
Because you can legally go out and drop bombs on another country. It's what they're saying is it's legal to murder, but it's not.
It was actually said by a Muslim cleric that they will use our laws against them, against us.
Yeah, that's right. But then you come onto this bit. I mean, I won't go for it, but I'm just I'm just saying these are the government figures. These are the prison figures. These are the figures that, you know, these people that they catch and do these dastardly, you know, inhumane things and all the rest of this, and they self-confess and they say, well, this is my religion, I'm instructed to do it by Muhammad or whoever he is, whatever. So therefore this is all self-put down by themselves, declaring what they are, what they're going to do, and it doesn't really matter what you do with us. You can put us in prison for the rest of our life, but I'm sure by the time, you know, things get changed the way we want it to change, we'll be out in a few years, and because our people will free us and whatever and all the rest of this nonsense.
And they will come out of prison wearing a badge of honour.
Yes, well, and I won't touch on this. I'll leave a link for it for anybody to see. I'm not saying it's true, whatever. This is the government's figures, okay? So if you're going to be somebody that's going to go to the voting office, to the polling office on Thursday, and you believe you've got a democracy, then you must believe that you're going to put into power's own figures. Go and read this, make your own mind up, look at it for what it is, because if you're good believing in a democracy, and you believe these people are going to do all good for you, then you've got to believe the figures they give you, because this is what they're giving you. So go and have a look for yourself. Go and see, and it does mention here about radicalization in prison. It's all on here. What you know, the risks and what's happening inside the prisons. What is actually happening? And people, young people who go into prison, they can go in as an extremist. They can go in as nicking some shopping, and they can come out fully radicalized in this way, because these people are in there, and they can't stop them from teaching their faith. It's their faith, you know, regardless of what we think of it, or what their adaptation of their Quran, whatever it is. You know, you can't tell them not to, you know, to go about studying their faith and doing what they think their adaptation of their faith is. Because you know that goes against our common law, whatever you want to call it, and all the rest of it. Not quite common law, but let's just say the modern so-called democracy, what people think it is. So, you know, at the end of the day, this is the thing people have got to address. Be open-minded about it and stop all this stupid nonsense and killing conversation between right, left, in the middle. People, who cares what political persuasion you are, just having a conversation about this. I grew up in the 70s. We had a lot of West Indian people come in that drove the London buses. I went to school with West Indian kids, a few Asian kids, and they were English.
Yeah.
Well, the point I was going to make earlier was...
You know, they were great kids. They were good friends, and we got on great, and we had a good laugh. We had a good laugh at school. We never had none of this crap.
Well, the way Paul, I was just going to say, when I was having this debate with somebody, and they said my views are very extreme, and I said, well, we're living in extreme times, and we need to, you know, consider seriously removing non-British born Muslims, deporting them from the country. And he said, yeah, your views are extreme. He said that it doesn't need to be like that. And what I wanted to tell him was that if you've got somebody who's not a British citizen, they are a guest in this country. They are literally a guest. So if you had somebody come to live with you, say you've got a wife and 5 kids and a dog and a cat, for example. Now you bring in 5 Muslims into your home, right? This is the way I look at it. It's a similar analogy. It's the same thing. They're a guest in your home. You've got 5 Muslims living in your home. You find your cat dead one day. You don't know who's done it. You find your dog dead the next day. You don't know who's done it. You find your youngest born child dead the next day. You don't know who's done it. What do?
That'd be out quicker than you can say Jack Robinson.
Oh, you don't know who's done it, but what do? You take the measure to say, well, you know, you're all going to have to leave because I don't know who's done it. I want to protect my remaining 4 children and my wife from being murdered. I'm sorry, you're all going to have to go. It's common bloody sense. These people are guests in our country, the ones that aren't British born. So, you know, if any of these atrocities are being carried out by non-British born Muslims, then the sensible reaction to me is to eliminate that risk by removing the problem.
Yeah.
It's plain and simple, and I don't think that's extreme views. I think
no, and I'm not racist whatsoever. I have multiple blood in me from different countries, so that no way can somebody call me racist.
But this is what they're doing. This is the whole agenda at the moment, is to tar you with a racist brush every time you even open your gob to address a genuine concern about a specific group of people that are a potential threat or whatever. You can't talk about it. As soon as you talk about it, bang, racist. You know,
Yeah.
You're a racist. You're an anti-Semitic. You're this. You're that. You know. No, I just want to talk about the problem.
Yeah, but aren't they being racist when they come in our country and saying it's got to be halal, it's got to be this, it's got to be that? That's racist. That's being racist to us.
Yeah, let's get it right though, Paul. This racist is been spun like if it's a different species.
ADL.
Yeah.
It's not a different species. I've had this discussion with many people. You can take an Asian girl from one side and an Aboriginal bloke from the other side of the world, and if they're of age and they're healthy enough, they can get together and they can produce offspring. They don't have different species. This is rubbish. Total
It is rubbish.
Total
It is rubbish.
I think a lot of this is part of the agenda of the ADL, in it, the Anti-Defamation League. They're the ones that started off all this racist categorizations and anti-Semitic and all this sort of stuff.
It's about culture, Jeff. It's culture, that's all. Ideologies and culture. You know, you cannot. An ideology or a religion or what? It's not a race anyway. It's not a species. It's just an ideology. And listen, I respect everybody's ideology around the world. If I went to the Middle East, I would do as they do in the Middle East. Otherwise, there's no point in going there. If the only other reason I would want to go there is to conquest.
Yeah, it's that old saying, is it not? When in Rome, you do as the Romans do.
And what would be the point of going anywhere if everything became the same, homogenized or homogenous?
Exactly.
Then you'll have no individuality, you'll have no culture, you'll have no different types of education, no different types of food, no different types of fashion, no different types of nature. There's some
all the same McDonald's, all the same Kentucky's.
What a boring part
all the
of
same nachos.
It's funny what Paul just said there, actually, because that makes a lot of sense to me. Our identity has sort of been watered down. We've imported a lot of our way of life in from America. We've sort of become Americanized. We're like the little brother of America. Whatever Big Brother does, which is America, we follow suit about 5 years later and do exactly the bloody same. So we've sort of, our identity has been, you know, it's been lost.
It's been usurped.
Yeah, well, the only way you can retain your culture in your country with smatterings of multiculturalism, let's get the political correctness words out there. Why not? Let's entertain the whole bloody lot. Right? If you want pockets or parts of multiculturalism, and you know, what do they call the cities now? Where they call them? No, what do they call them? Where they're all. No,
like little Chinatown and things like that.
Yeah. What do they call them? Metropolitan cities, whatever. If you want to maintain that, if you want to maintain a multicultural country, right? You must, the country where it must retain its base culture. It must keep its base culture so that you can entertain multiculturalism. If you don't do that and you allow one culture to take over completely, then you don't have multiculturalism. It's insane what people are pushing. You know, I don't actually see the logic in any of this.
Yeah, it's conquest by pure definition. If somebody comes into your country as a guest, you expect that guest to take over and start laying down the rules.
I think it's great that if you can, don't get me wrong. I think if you can have, if you can have all the little bits of the cultural world here and there where you can go and visit Chinatown or visit and go and have a curry somewhere in, you know, a particular town has got its section of all this diversity. That's fine.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah.
That's lovely, but that's not what we got.
Yes. Well, no, we're gonna lose that. If that's such a special thing to attain, then we must maintain each country. Doesn't matter whether it's here. It might be in Syria. It might be in Iraq. It might be in Afghanistan. Maybe in Pakistan. What's the point of going to Pakistan if it's not Pakistan? You know, if it hasn't got its cultures, whether you like that stuff or not, that's entirely up to you.
Stav, a good analogy is this: if you invited me to come round to your house for as a guest for dinner with your lovely wife Nikki and what have you, right? You could turn around, I could turn up, and you could say, right, Jeff, could you just take your shoes off outside the door? We've got a new carpet in the living room. I don't want a mess. Now, if I walked in with my dirty, muddy feet on, all over your nice new carpet, and I said, right, from now on, you're to walk in here with muddy shoes every day in your own home, what would you say? You'd be a bit pissed off, wouldn't you? It's exactly the same thing.
Well, you know what? It's a word that we used to say, and there's a lot. There is a Aretha Franklin. Is it Aretha Franklin? A song, RESPECT. Respect.
Yeah, respect, exactly. So they come into our country for them to culturally integrate. They have to abide by our rules. It's as plain as simple as that. It's our home. They're the guest. You know,
yeah.
And if they become a British citizen, they become a British citizen because they want to be a part of our culture.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Why they all want to listen? If they all want to come here, they're not coming to change it. They're coming here because they like it, because it's not like their own country, and they prefer to live in an English or a British culture, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Why on earth would they want to change it?
It's conquest. If they want to change it, what they're trying to do is conquer it. It's like if I come round your house and say to you, and I walk in your house with muddy shoes after you've told me that you want me to take my shoes off, and then I start telling you to put muddy shoes on, that's conquest.
Exactly that. Now, this is what people, I think the younger, I'm an older geezer, I think most of us are in here, apart from perhaps PJ. I'm not sure if Towers at that sort of our sort of age or around that. I think perhaps I get the impression he's close to it. But this is what the younger generation, when I say younger, they can be 30 down, they can be 40 down compared to me. You know, they need to look at this for what it is instead of being completely, absolutely washed by this, to put it in a political, ideological sort of way, this socialist at all costs type of thing. There's nothing wrong with socialism. Most people are inbred with a form of socialism, if you want to call it that. But there's a difference between political socialism and socialism as in we're all going to get on. You know, people are better start to find what the difference is and you know, read between the lines here, because, you know, one is you know, Stalin and Lenin both, I know Stalin said that socialism is communism. That's you go and check it. It's written there.
Stalin was very fond of a thing called collectivism, wasn't he? So you know, there's a different level of socialism, if you like, collectivism, where everything's owned by the state, controlled by the state, and that you don't have, you know.
The only way we're going to sort these attacks, which is the subject tonight, regardless of what, you know, this white guilt type thing, and you know, we deserve it. We let our governments bomb and kill all these people. Yeah, we know history. If we've done a bit of research, it goes back even further than that. You can go back hundreds of years. It can go from you know, crusades. It can go past whatever, whichever your take on it. Young people should be a bit more open-minded and stop being politically brainwashed by these political parties that have more than one agenda. And that's not just to look after you, me, or anybody else. They have political agendas, they have corporate agendas, they have money agendas, all of these things. So, you know, it needs the youth and the people from the left, right, wherever you want to call yourself, to really have a proper discussion about how we're going to tackle these attacks that are going to keep coming by the looks of things, unfortunately.
And they're going to become more and more volatile.
Yeah, unfortunately, if nothing's done, Paul, that's what's going to happen. because it's being allowed to happen. People are giving excuses hand over fist for it to happen.
Yeah.
You know, and let's have a pop star concert and light a candle and all forget about it, and that's done that. Let's raise a bit of money because that's all that bloody matters. Well, come on, people. You know, it's about time people had an intelligent conversation about it, rather than just, you know, making excuses for these things, and do what perhaps we're doing tonight. No matter, I don't give a monkey's what anybody thinks about it.
The government is doing its utmost to stop people talking about it. Where are the canvassers? Well, you know, you can't even talk to your politicians.
Well, why bother voting for them then? You know, this is my point. If you can't even talk to them.
The only country in Europe that seems to be taking the bull by the horns, acting on common sense and doing something about anything in the whole of Europe appears to be Poland at the moment. Of all people.
I've noticed that, yes.
It's incredible. They're doing something about it. They're saying, you know, no, we're not going to have more immigrants. Clearly there's a problem. There's a clash of cultures. It's a clash of cultures. That's exactly what it is. And they're dealing with it. So why are other governments in the European Union are not standing up? I mean, I think a lot of it is fear that they're going to get fines off of the European Union or some sort of nonsense like that. You know, all you've got to do is say, you know, we've abided by your policies up to now. Clearly your policies are not working. Your European freedom of movement is not working for the vast majority of the people of this continent, and it's caused a problem. So we're no longer going to go along with this contract. It's an experiment. It's failed. It hasn't worked. We need to move on. We need to do something about it and correct the mess that we've made. Take responsibility.
Well, yeah, Sutherland said that we've got to be quicker in homogenising all the Europe. So it's obvious what's going down. It's obvious. It's been stated. It's out there for people to see with their own two eyes. So people have got to start waking up to the fact what truly is going on.
Who's that, Paul, that you were talking about then? That
Here's Sutherland of NATO.
Yes.
NATO.
Yeah, he was a big fan of the Kudinov-Kalergi plan, wasn't he, Paul?
Right. Gotcha.
Well, I don't know if he's a big fan of it, but you know, it's all of that ideal. But I mean, that isn't going to be the answer. That'll never be the answer, because people will come to this country from sub-Saharan continent or whatever, where life, unfortunately, through a lot of the corporate world and the economic hitman and the IMF and all the rest of it, you know, Africa's the most richest continent in the world. Yeah. It really is the most richest continent in minerals and everything in the ground. It really is. And what needs to be done is, stop dropping bombs and declaring wars and that for corporate control and greed. How about helping these people directly to build their own economies up and get them going and get rid of the riffraff and the banana republic leaders that are put in place by the IMF with the economic hitman to take all the resources and debt the bloody countries with debt they can't pay and take all their resources. All of that needs sorting out. That's the conversations the younger generation should be put into to everybody. I think that would be a great start.
Let's have a look at the triggers of war and all these conflicts. Now, two triggers are scarcity, and the other is always been religion. And so which is the worst, scarcity or the religion?
Or one big massive power.
Sorry, Paul?
Or one big massive power. I honestly believe if the United States all the wars they've had since the Second World War were fought within their own borders, they wouldn't be the strength they are.
Yeah. And they've got bases all over the world now, absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's expansionism and
it's pushing their agendas, and that's why there's scarcity, because things are purposely being held back from the countries. There is no need for scarcity whatsoever. There's enough resources in the world for the world's peoples.
Well, there's plenty of. I tell you what, getting back to the immigration side of it, as we're on that side of it, there's a lot of what they call. I mean, I've seen quite a few videos from people who don't get on with other alternative media, but there's quite a lot of truth in it. There's a lot of virtual signaling by these people that say, you know, we must have all these immigrants in. We must have all these immigrants in, you know. But not when they're pressed with like famous people like the Harry Potter. What's her name? Eh?
Like who?
J.K. Rowling and Lily Allen and all these lot. When they're approached and say, well, look, we've got some immigrants that, you know, they need putting up. Would you mind spacing your? No. When it comes to them putting up these immigrant people or refugees, as they want to call them, they won't put them up. They'll run like a bloody mile. So there's a lot of this shining the old ego badge.
Yeah,
by,
and all these big elites that say there should be no borders, this, that, and they live in gated blinking mansions.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they live in rural communities where the typical demography is, you know, white and what have you, with very little ethnic minorities. So, you know, they haven't got a problem. It's all very well for them to preach it, but they wouldn't have them in their house, would they?
No, they wouldn't. And the other thing is, and I don't know if you noticed it, of course, as soon as there was a terrorist attack, right, and they said, well, they've got to put troops with guns on the street, where did they put them?
Down the Houses of Parliament?
Yes, because Queenie was on a walkabout visiting Manchester Hospital and all this business and that. Well, you know, whichever. I mean, at the end of the day, they will protect their own. But when it comes to Joe Public, well, you know, hang as you blow type thing. So it really, you know, these are the things that people should have in conversations about. I think pointing the fingers and all that business is one thing, but you know, if you've got no answers that perhaps, you know, that might go to a way of trying to solve the problem, that what's actually happening, rather than just pointing bloody fingers and saying, you know, well, we got to pay for imperialist Britain all 100 years of killing, and the American killing the indigenous people, the British killing you know.
It's almost like we're lab rats. It's an experiment. It's an experiment, and we're the lab rats. They don't mind if we lose a few people or whatever due to a failed experiment. If it is down to them. I mean, the very first thing, what I seen on this one of these things last night about the terror attacks was that they were saying that the police immediately went to the area to do with the what you would call the I suppose the elite area, if you like, for protection. They went straight there to protect the important what they consider. Eh?
The elite, yeah,
they went straight to the financial services area, if you like, so the sort of part of London which they consider the most important, not the general populace. They didn't go there to protect the general populace. They went there to protect the powers that be. That's their very first you know, line of thought. So the rest of us are just an experiment. We're just lab rats. That's the way I, you know, when it all goes wrong and the shit hits the proverbial shit hits the fan, it's us that pays the price every time.
Yeah, well, that's how it's always been. But I'll throw something else into the mix. We had the British Empire, and we had the, you know, all these different, the Roman Empire. We had all these different empires throughout history. No one dares ask and say about the Islamic Empire, which stretched from 700 eventually all the way up to mid-France, past Spain, right the way up to the steppes of China, into the Russian, all through the Baltics, all up through Austria. All of that area was an Islamic conquest.
And that's what they're after again.
You know, this started in 700 AD and it went all the way. a lot of people don't realise that Islam ruled in Spain for 700 years.
And didn't they condemn the Moors?
It's been going on for about 1,400 years, apparently.
Yes, so let's not forget that, you know, Islam is something that's just Wahhabi, Salafist, whatever you want to call them, Sunni terrorist factions of the Saudis. Let's not just forget that that's all they are, a bunch of terrorists. You know, there was an Islamic conquest and an empire that was stretched further than the Roman Empire.
Right.
So let's not forget that happened. And empires, we had the British Empire, yeah, and all the rest of it, and we've got the American industrial complex today. And
I mean, that's conveniently forgotten. It was even conveniently forgotten when I was at school.
Yes, it was, Paul, and it was you.
If this has been going on for 1,400 years, what's the odds that it's going to change now? It doesn't look like it's going to change.
The other thing is, Jeff, in that, they totally reversed round the Crusades as like the Crusaders were the conquerors. No, that's not how it is. That's not how it was. If you go and read the history,
Crusaders were the protectors.
Yes, that's right. They were trying to stop this Islamic takeover of the world as what they knew it then. So, I mean, that's my adaptation. That's what I've read and how I see it. And I've read a lot of old books in my youth that have probably disappeared from everywhere now. But, you know, unfortunately, I didn't keep them all. But, you know, that's not addressed. That's not talked about in history. Oh no, let's not bring that up. Let's kick that down the road.
So by forgetting the past, the errors of the past, we're due to repeat the same mistakes in the now or in the future.
It's a very powerful thing. It can be a very powerful thing again, the same as the British Empire could be a powerful thing. And some people say, well, it is under the American. No, it's not. The American industrial complex is military-industrial complex is the American military-industrial. And Yamamoto, right? This admiral, this Japanese admiral, who was on the aircraft carrier when they went on the way back to Japan after Pearl Harbor, he said, and these are his words, and I look at them different to a lot of other people. He said, I fear we have awoken the sleeping giant. The American military-industrial complex. He knew what the Japanese had done. The Admiral Yamamoto, after the attack on Pearl Harbor. So he knew that by saying that, he wasn't just thinking of Japan. He was thinking of the world.
I mean, Japan did have a big empire itself as well, going back then. And have you noticed though? But with Japan, they've managed to retain their culture intact, and it's a beautiful culture. It's, you know, its own unique, beautiful culture that they've managed to keep purely Japanese, and they haven't allowed all these different elements, alien elements, into their country.
No, they don't. They won't have it. They won't have Islam in Japan.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to. They're not allowed to practice. As far as I know, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Put something in the chat box, somebody, if there's anyone listening. But as far as I'm aware, they're not allowed to practice their faith in Japan.
I think they got the right idea, to be honest, Stav.
Well, I mean, they were an empire, imperialist. They had an emperor, didn't they?
Yeah.
You know? And the only reason why
you don't hear of any terror attacks in Japan either.
No, because they learned from their history, their own history. And the mistakes that may be, we know it's pretty much a whorehouse for the dollar, the debt dollar. I mean, because that's who buys all the American bank bonds. So dumping the American debt, really. That's all Japan is. A lot of people don't realise. I don't know why. You know, how long have they had inflation or deflation, whichever way you want to call it? How many years now have they been broke?
Yeah, well, it's been quantitative easing after quantitative easing after quantitative easing in Japan.
You've got to remember, with the yen, it's a fiat currency, the same as the euro, the same as the dollar, the same as the pound. So that's one.
Japan stopped buying the American debt bonds, the whole game would come down. A lot of people don't realise how significant Japan is to America.
Yeah, because when America said they were going to stop quantitative easing, Japan just took over the quantitative easing.
That's right, yeah, basically. It's the whorehouse for the American debt dollar. But I mean, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, we've got off topic again a bit here, but bringing it all back to where we are, you know, people have got to get their heads out of their bloody sand and out their arse and stop thinking that, you know, you can't discuss these things because, you know, it's like that. I mean, I always out back to somebody who posted an image on my page, on a Facebook page years ago, and it was a shot from inside the prison with the bars all around you and the door wide open. I mean, you know, you keep yourself a prisoner and fear will keep you in that. And eventually people will end up so scared they won't say boo to a goose, they'll lose their freedom of speech, they'll lose their freedoms. It'll all be homogenized and it will be damn, well, I could see it being as boring as, well, I just can't imagine what the world will be for the future generations if people don't just sit down and have a proper conversation. Instead of, I mean, I see it on alternative media, Paul and Jeff. You'll get, you know, all these alternative media sniping at each other, calling them names, and they've got it wrong, and they're wrong, and they're working for that part of the right wingers, and we're left wingers, and even the alternative media now is a mess, a complete mess as far as I can see. You know, so it's a shame. It's getting like it is. But I remember I went to,
working together and coming to sort of sensible conclusions, and you know, and instead of fighting each other and all this division.
Well, there was one moment I went to the Bilderberg Fringe Fest in 2013, and Alex Jones, and there was all their UK column. Everybody was there. But you know what? I didn't really speak to them much because they were too busy chasing around people and cameras and all that nonsense, right? But I sat down and spoke to a lot of people in that field, just ordinary people. Some from abroad, some from France, some from Austria, some from Switzerland. A guy came on his bicycle from Switzerland. Can you believe that? Right? And I had a chat with all these Germans, kids and people and that. And I had a real good chat, young and old, all types of people. I didn't listen to Kerry Cassidy and the rest of them doing their speeches or whatever. I couldn't really, I watch them on the internet. I know what they're about and what they do and whatever, and that's okay. But I spoke to quite a lot of people there, just ordinary people, and I thought, this is great. There was no Antifa. This is only 5 years ago. There was no Antifa and all this.
Yeah.
You know, it was great because I sat down and I spoke to people, and we all were on the same page.
Yeah.
We could all understand each other. We all had the same thoughts. Different angles of it. I mean, some guy was telling me about the German government and how they locked him up for 18 months in an asylum. An asylum in Germany because he said, well, this is all bollocks. And his own family put him in a mental hospital for 18 months because he
what they do in Germany. They haven't got freedom of speech over there. If you deny Holocaust, for example, if you challenge the narrative from the official narrative of what happened in the Second World War, you get put in prisons. Now, Germany hasn't got free speech. There's no free speech on social media because if you say anything on social media that anybody isn't happy with, then you're instantly in breach of their terms and conditions, and you get a post ban and all this sort of stuff. So it's getting that way over here with all these, for example, anti-Semitic laws. That's just another example of racism laws, and, you know, all this hate speech. Speech is speech. To me, speech is speech is speech is speech. That's all it is. If you can't talk about this subject or that subject and it's censored in any shape or form, you've immediately wrecked the entire ability to be able to hold conversation, you know?
Everybody should be entitled to their own opinion, and that's the end of it, and that's the way it should be. Everybody should be entitled to their own opinion, whether they're right, wrong, in the middle, left, right, front or centre. They should be entitled to their opinion without people saying, oh, you cannot say that.
Exactly. It's when you get subjects that have become taboo that you develop the problem, because it just gets swept under the rug. So we've got to get away from all this, you know, calling people racists and anti-Semites and all this sort of nonsense. And just
it gets swept under that lumpy, bumpy carpet, and they're not allowed to be spoken about.
Yeah, it's all swept under the
therefore, because it's not allowed to be spoken about, it does not get dealt with, and it festers.
Yeah, and I'd like to say to the alternative media, isn't it about time? You know, it's all very fine saying, I know something about the New World Order you don't know. Oh, do you know about this operation? Do you know about this? Do you know about that? Yeah, fine. You know, from Operation Paperclip to Gladio and all that. It's all good knowledge. But this, why are people obsessed, especially alt media, with just talking about what's the next plan of the government, the New World Order and that sort of thing? It's interesting. I'll give it its due. And I've done a lot of my own going down the rabbit hole, spent years researching that. But that's not going to be the answer. Spending, you know, subscribe to my Patreon, because next week we're going to be discussing the Jesuits, or next week we're going to be discussing, you know, the Illuminati, or we're going to be talking about the Knights Templars and all the rest of it. Yeah, we all pretty much know that now. It's pretty much common knowledge.
I think the government's making a rod for his own backstab, because what's going to happen is you're going to find, with all these terrorist attacks kicking off, that people are going to form militias. And what that means is they're going to be taking the law into their own hands. And when that happens,
that's exactly what the government wants, and then they can bring in the contingency act.
Well, I think it's going to backfire on them big time, because if enough people start kicking off and they say, well, we're going to have to take the law into our own hand, we're going to start getting hold of these radical Muslims or whatever and throwing them out of the country ourselves. Once we've finished with that, the militias are going to come together and they're going to say, right, next we're going to throw out these saboteurs that are calling themselves government, and we're going to deal with them. And we're going to find that even police are going to get involved in these militias and things like that. You know, people are going to say, I've had enough. It's not being dealt with. The problems aren't being dealt with. Government are impotent, totally impotent to do anything about it. So we'll deal with the problem, the initial problems at hand, and then we'll deal with the government. And when we come for Westminster, they better bloody watch out, because it'll be a bigger uprising than the Wat Tyler peasants' revolt of the past and everything.
It seems to me all the government are doing are initiating divide and rule all the way down the line. Divide and rule, divide and rule, divide and rule.
Well, I think what they need to do, I mean, this is my thoughts. I mean, I'm not going to tell what people do. I do my own thing, and I only offer some, not advice, I don't know, my thoughts. That's it, really. Isn't it time that all of these educated people, right, that know more than the educators in universities now? You've got clever people like Ian Crane, you've got UK column guides, you've got David Icey. It's all to get together. And if people want a democracy and they want a political party, why the hell don't they all get together and sort the goddamn thing out and stand for something and take these people on? You know, if that's what people want, why don't they all do that? Because we can all pretty much come from the base common ground of all this, surely. I mean, at the end of the day, it can only make common sense. At the end of the day is integration and immigration. We've always had it. It's always happened. It's part of the human race moving around the world and moving around the globe.
But it should be organic, shouldn't it? It shouldn't be forced immigration like it has.
Absolutely. But you can't do it with no control. If you can't, you know, this is what keeps all of the different cultures and wonderful thing around the earth. It's because they've protected their culture. They've had to do it through wars a lot of the time and conquests, and people want to take them over for their minerals and their resources and whatever. But at the end of the day, you know, there's nothing wrong with integration of certain amounts around the world and spreading little bits of different culture here and there, but you must maintain your own culture. Otherwise, there'll be no difference. Who wants an homogenous world of people that are all the same? I think we can all come to that agreement across all of these people that have got vast more knowledge than me, like I say, the people I mentioned. Get together, and if you need to get a political movement again together, and that's what people want, they want a democracy, well, get to it. Instead of just starving off questions.
The rule of law. If we re-establish the rule of law, i.e. common law, all right, which is the basic fundamental principle of the greatest system of law that the world is it's been spread throughout the world, based on our Magna Carta, our common law.
Yeah.
That's all that needs to be re-established. I mean, terrorism.
Well, Jeff,
terrorism is just called what it is: murder. So, you know, if anybody breaks those rules, and this isn't, you know, our common law is kept what's the word? Sacrosanct or whatever. If it's kept, like, you know, as it's meant to be, and it's not messed about with, then that solves the problem. As far as
here's one thing, and it applies to all religions, all cultures. The good people in this country. I'm not talking about the nutcases and the psychopaths or whatever you want to call them. You know, I'm talking about good people in all of these countries. The majority of everybody is good people because they believe in humanity at the end of the day. There's something, right, that I think Paul would agree with, right, and it's the basis of our English common law, and it comes long time before Magna Carta. That was reaffirmation of it, and it does go back to Alfred the Great. I got to say it, and here it is. And every religion and every good people around the world would probably say, yeah, and it's called the Golden Rule.
Yeah,
that's it.
What, the Golden Rule, which is do unto others as you would have them do unto you?
Exactly.
That's it. That's
basically the one rule. That one rule alone, you can live by that.
Yeah.
Because
I think if you're going to take the basis of all religions and idealism by the good, then I don't think anybody would argue with that. I don't know if there's any. A nutcase might argue with it, but then, you know, there's no reason.
You expect that from nutcases, don't you?
Yeah. So you know why? It's not a you know, it might be an Abrahamic.
There's one very slight. There's one very slight exception from that golden rule, right? Which is do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? It does not apply to masochists, because if they have it done unto them, if they're happy to be,
well, they're nutcases.
They're happy to be.
They come under nutcases, don't they, Jeff?
Yeah, they definitely.
If they're happy to be whipped, what they might think is acceptable to whip other people or something. You know what I'm saying? But apart from that, that would cover it. All you would have to say is do unto others as you would have them do unto you, except masochists.
Well, yeah. Then you could have this kind of a utopia type thing in the world exist, and as Billick said, we can get on and all, and we can explore space together and all that lovely business if you wanted to, if that could come about. But it's not going to come out never ever going to come out by force, because of the Newtonian law, if you like, you know.
Yeah, we've got to get back to treating each other with love and respect, and also our land with love and respect.
Yeah. You've got to be careful with that, because a nutcase will abuse that love and use it against you, and you'll end up with a nutcase, you know.
There's always one that's got to spoil it all, isn't there, for everybody else? This is the problem, but you're never going to get rid of that, I'm afraid. All you can do is apply.
Well, like I say, there's enough clever people, intelligent people, and I watch their YouTubes and I go, wow, that man, he's incredible. He knows so much. Paul's very knowledgeable. You're very knowledgeable, Jeff. Even and Tower does his thing, and PJ does his thing. But there's even more. You know, a lot of these alternative guys have know the score, and you know, there's enough. We know that you got the ammo, you got the tools, you've got the education, the historical knowledge of everything now. So I think most alternative people are worth any salt know more than certainly no more than the academicals in universities or dons and all the rest of that. So we have the not ammunition, because I might put it, we have the knowledge. Really.
The trouble is with a lot of the academics now, though, they've been perverted because of the frightened of losing their tenures.
I'll tell you what, the biggest example of that, I would say, is the economic experts, Paul, because the economic experts don't seem to have a bloody clue what's going on in our economic system and how the banking system works.
No.
a lot of them think that, you know, that we've got to keep basically doing what we're doing now.
Well, they actually believe what their curriculum taught them in their schools and universities.
It's indoctrinated down through their curriculum, and they're not seeing it how it is and for what a scam it is. I mean, the old system with Keynesian economics only works if you keep expanding the debt. As soon as you contract the debt, the money supply disappears. And
it was actually made that way, so it claps every 50 several years or so.
Exactly, that's the thing. So, you know, if once they realise that you can't actually eliminate the debt, by eliminating the debt in the current system, you actually destroy the money supply. So, you know, there's always going to be debt. It's only going to ever get bigger. It's not going to get smaller.
Well, I think that can be addressed too, Jeff, if it's allowed to. You know,
I'm just saying the current system stuff. I mean, as it is, it can't get better. But I mean, we can actually completely alter that system. It wouldn't be hard, actually. It'd be very, very simple to do. To eliminate the debt bubble, you forgive the debt. That's the only way to discharge the debt. And then to prevent further debt bubbles from forming, you abolish usury, because it all expands out of usury and interest and compound interest.
Yeah,
so you have to do two things simultaneously. Once you've done
doesn't it? Yeah, well, it just comes back to exponential growth in a finite world. It's not possible.
Yeah, of course. You can't have continual growth, not never ending. It's just not reasonable. It's totally.
But it can be. That can all be addressed and fixed. Not fixed, but you know, something else. I'm sure there's many more clever people out there.
I mean, look at mathematically perfected economy. People have put those ideas to the government, and the government have just said, no, we're not interested. You know, the Bradbury Pound. They put the Bradbury Pound towards the government and said, here's a solution to fix our, you know, to have a value-based currency. And they've just not been interested whatsoever. So it's clear to me that they want to keep the current system of siphoning off and skimming the wealth of the people in place so that they can maintain their
but that's because they're in the situations where they're okay.
Yeah, exactly.
If they was in the poor person's shoes, then they'd be shouting, trying to get it changed.
Yeah, they just want to maintain the status quo, their dominant social.
What did they used to do in the old days, Jeff? Right. When they first started coinage, right? It addressed the exponential growth problem and interest and all that crap. After a certain amount of years, that's right. They withdrew all the money out of the system.
Yeah.
Right. Took it all back. And then they reissued new coinage, but not so much of it. That completely got rid of it all instantly.
Well, the less money you've got in the money supply, the stronger.
Yeah, that's all it is. That's the simpleness of it. That's how you maintain a currency or coinage. Yeah. That once it gets out of proportion, and you're flooded with shitloads of coins that eventually become, there's so many, they become penniless. You know, the penny becomes a penniless. They recall it all and they mint new coins, but they don't mint as much as what was in circulation. You've done away with it. It's gone.
Yeah, if you keep diluting down the money system with quantitative easing and what have you, all you do is weaken the currency. The only way that actually benefits you is from your export.
Yeah, well, this is just the old usury and conquering people. Rather than going and getting them, you're going to indebt them and destroy their money and impoverish them. So it's an act of war, currency war you're talking. Well, if you just recall all the currency, right, and reissue it, a new currency, a new coin, right, with not so many, you can maintain your own economy without it getting overstretched and over the top, overinflated.
If you've got an independent nation capable of producing its own...
That's what they used to do. That's exactly what they used to do.
Yeah, well, if you've got, like I said, if you've got an independent nation capable of producing all its own requirements, then you don't need to import, so you don't need to keep debasing the currency.
Yeah, well, there we are. But we can have a discussion another time about currencies and money.
Off the subject a bit there. Stav, I'm just going to make a cup of tea a minute. I'll be back in a sec. You carry on, guys.
Oh, I'll carry on with Paul for a while, but we're giving another 15 minutes. That'd be 2 hours, wouldn't it? 11. Yeah, but I don't know. Perhaps I don't know. I've been rapping. I don't know whether Tara wanted. Did you want to say anything, Tara? If you're still there, if you ain't gone to sleep, mate.
Sorry, say that again, Stav.
There's a guy on here called Tara. He's been listening. I'm not sure whether he wanted to make a comment.
I am here. I am here, and I have been listening. I just thought, well, this week I'll, because it's first time, so I'll listen in, and there's a few ideas I've agreed with in areas, but probably more next week. I'll probably just start getting more involved.
Yeah, okay, Tara, no problem. Good to have you on board. And we do talk over each other because we get a bit excited, and it's kind of hard to get in. And,
I get that.
Yeah, we try our best not to overtalk each other, because at the end of the day it is rude, but then again sometimes something needs to be said at that conjecture.
Yes, that's right, Paul. That's the problem, because if you are very polite when we're having these discussions, unless you've got somebody who works to a script, and I kind of dislike that a bit because it becomes all, But anyway, yeah, at that point you need to get something in, because if you wait too long, you either forget what the point you was going to make, or it's gone on that far. It doesn't really. You're bringing it all back and moved on in the conversation. Yeah,
that's
I totally agree with you, Paul. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have got some good people here that are very knowledgeable.
Well, I think go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, sir.
I was just going to say,
I'm at awe at the knowledge that goes round this group.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say. I just thought I talk a lot of nonsense most of the time.
I was on about iron ore, like your helmet.
Hey, listen, that's why the Romans came here. A lot of people don't really realise that the Romans really came here for the iron.
Well, actually, the Romans collapsed through their money situation, didn't they?
They did indeed. This is the point where the denarius becomes so debased from silver. It wasn't really hardly any silver content left in it. Yeah, and they done that
because they first of all debased it by watering it, metals, mixing it with other metals, and then they were clipping it.
Oh yeah, clipping. That was a hangable offence, or you got your head chopped off. Executions in the Middle Ages too. I've actually got. I used to have quite a good coin collection years ago, but most of it's gone now. But I had several of the medieval coins, and you would. I used to do quite a bit of that metal detecting years ago. I used to find them, and some of them they only had the centre of the coin left, where the little bit of the head was, where it had been so severely clipped. It's unbelievable, It was a very common thing in those days to skim off the bits of silver and melt it down and make it into their own forgeries and hammer it out, and so there was all that.
But as Jeff knocked it on, didn't knock it on the head. Jeff hit it on the head, should I say? It's usury.
Yes, that's what it is. Yeah.
Because it just does not work.
No, and you know what? If you're a real Christian, as far as what I've read, anyway, if you believe in Christ, I'm not going to go into that.
Yeah, it's in the Bible. It should not be used.
That's right. Absolutely. That's what the clearing of the tables and throwing them out of the temple, the money changers, was all about, wasn't it? So I mean, whether you believe it,
say it's either a lot of the times it's either currency, financial stuff that causes the wars, or ideology, as in different religions and what have you.
Yes, well, what's unfolding now in this world, and you have a lot of complete. I'm going to call them nutcases, because that's what the worst. I could call them a lot worse. words, but I think nutcases in heads of the EU.
Let's call
So we lost your Paul then for a minute. We seem to have lost Paul. Is he back? I think we lost Paul there.
I had to laugh just last week when Amber Rudd said about we ought to be a real trading country, this, that, and the other. And I thought, well, blimey, we could be a.
What we could be if we had something to trade. I'm back, by the way.
Yeah, Paul's connection's a little bit. You're in and out a bit.
Something to trade. I'm back, by the way.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is we did have things to trade until the EU started hitting our industry, like the fishing industry for starters. That was one of the big ones they hit. The coaling industry, and people can't say, oh, it's because there weren't enough coal or this, that, or the other. Yeah. You know, the global warming, well, I say you know, I think you know, the global warming is one of the biggest hoaxes going with the East Anglia blinking fiddle.
Oh, yes, we know all about the who wrote
Have I been cut off?
No, you're all right. Yeah, okay, Paul. Yeah, well, that actually started at the end of Thatcher's era, didn't it? That's what I hear, the global warming hoax. It's gone now.
Sorry, but I think it's to do, that was all to do with Al Gore, wasn't it? He started off all this global warming.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually confirmed. Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
What was you saying, mate?
That was the Luxembourg summit over the global warming. It was confirmed that East Anglia was fiddling the figures.
Oh, right, yeah. There's been all sorts of rubbish about, you know, CO2 and things like that. It's and it's all based on 30 or 40 year climate records, which is a very small snapshot of our historical, our historical temperature levels. Yeah. So you can't really go by this silly global warming narrative at all.
And we need CO2.
Yeah.
Look how well tomatoes grow in CO2.
Exactly. It's plant food. It's not a pollutant. It's plant food. Without it, we'd die.
Yeah. And what do the trees give us? The oxygen.
Exactly. If you get precisely. So if you got rid of all the CO2, the plants would die. We wouldn't have any oxygen. We'd all
That's why it's symbiotic, and if you take one away, it's a collapse.
Exactly. It's all part of the one big ecosystem, and it's necessary. We're carbon-based life forms, so exactly. CO2. You know, well, we can contain carbon, I should say. We all contain carbon. It's part of us. It's the miracle molecule of life. So to say that CO2 levels rising is dangerous and is going to kill us all is misleading and deceptive. Is not. It's a natural gas.
But,
go on, Paul. What are you going to say, mate? I think Paul's got problems again with his connection there, Stav.
It shows what a scam if Al Gore was pushing out the global. Gore was pushing out global warming, saying how the sea levels were going to rise. How does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I heard a bit of what you said there, Paul. Something about saying about sea level rises. Well, we've had a modest couple of millimetre rises.
I think we lost things here.
A couple of millimetres of sea level rise is absolutely nothing to worry about. It's nothing. I mean, 1,500 metres, that's a sea level rise. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
we haven't had anything like that. I mean, before all this global warming nonsense, they were talking about us going into a mini ice age, so they can't seem to make up their mind.
Yeah, I mean, would Al Gore bought seafront properties if there was global warming that was going to make dramatic sea rises?
Yeah.
I think not somehow.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think, you do get land going underwater, and you do get land coming out of water for whatever reason, for volcanic reasons and things. I mean, Hawaii is growing in.
Yeah, you're going to get subduction and rises in the lands of different parts of the world. It's forever going on.
I mean, if you actually look at the bigger picture of CO2, it goes back hundreds of millions of years, and it was literally 1,000 times higher than what it is now. I don't know exactly what, but I mean 8,000 parts per million, as opposed to sort of 4 parts per million or whatever. So I mean, it is massively higher, the levels of CO2, than it is now. So we're at the bottom end of the scale for CO2. We're actually dangerously low on levels of CO2 historically. So the one thing that will correct that, and believe you me, it's nothing to do with car emissions and things. The one thing that will really make a difference to bumping up CO2 levels is when a volcano goes off, because it throws out CO2, sulfur, and dust and ash and all the rest of it, and all sorts of aerosols.
As soon as they start bringing in emotive reasons like little children are going to die, this, that, and the other, or polar bears are going to die, your mind should start thinking, hello, what's going on? What they saying, and
sorry guys, can I read you a little
really
something?
scrutinise these idiots.
Sorry, Paul.
Been clear for you, Jeffrey.
Jeff, can I read you and Paul something?
Yeah, go for it, Stuff.
Right, it's a persistent claim made by believers in man-made global warming that they were at it again last week. Blah blah blah. More information, Lord, climate change. Is that no politician was more influential in launching the worldwide arc of climate change than Margaret Thatcher? David Cameron's The Argument Runs is simply following in her footsteps by committing the Tory party. This was a couple of years ago. Believing the dangers of global warming and showing himself in respect, if few others, to be a loyal Thatcherite. The truth behind this story is much more interesting. Certainly, Mrs. Thatcher was the first world leader to voice alarm over global warming back in 1988. With her scientific background, she had fallen under the spell of Sir Crispin Tickle, then our man at the United Nations in the 70s. He'd written a book warning that the world was cooling, but he had since become an ardent convert to the belief that it was warming. Under his influence, as she just recorded in her memoirs, she made a series of speeches in Britain and to the world bodies calling for urgent international action and citing evidence given to the US Senate by the arch-alarmist Jim Hansen, head of NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies. I've just finished this little bit of a paragraph. She found equally persuasive the views of a third prominent convert to the cause, Dr. John Horton, the then head of the UK Met Office. She backed him in the setting up of the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, in 1988, and promised the Met Office lavish funding for its Hadley Centre, which she opened in 1990 as a world authority on human-induced climate change. So there you go.
I've no doubt that man-made...
There wasn't Al Gore at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, it probably does. The agenda probably does go back further than that. But I think,
but you see,
he pressed the issue with his book.
Yeah, but you see how this misnomer of Al Gore started it all is nonsense, because it goes back further than that.
Right.
You see, this is what people don't do with alternative media. They don't actually look back further than their nose. They find a cause that they think it is, and then they go from there. when it goes back to a lot further than what people say, you know.
Yeah,
And
agendas do go back a long way, but I think it was pressed mainly by Al Gore when he brought out his book, An Inconvenient Truth, and he brought out another book as well. He brought out 2 books. That,
just copied Thatcher and this United IPCC.
yeah. Well, that's probably the origins of it, like you say. But you know, these agendas, they plan these agendas out. Whatever agenda it is, they plan it out a long way in advance, and it goes like you say. These plans, they can fester on for like a long time before they come to fruition. But it's all about tax. It's all about.
Here's the connection. Yeah, and here's the connection to what Paul was saying. Hadley then linked up with East Anglia's Climate Research Unit, the CRU, to become custodians of the most prestigious of the world's surface temperature records, alongside another compiled by Dr. Anson. This became the central nexus of influence, driving a worldwide scare over global warming, and so it remains to this day. Not least thanks to the key role of Holt and Sir John in shaping the first 3 mammoth reports, which established the IPCC's unequalled authority on the subject. And Paul was saying about all those documents, weren't you, Paul?
Right. Well, we've had an interesting debate tonight. We sort of strayed off the topic a bit, and I think, you know, we're going to have to wrap it up now, guys. But it's been great having you all on, and I've had a great little natter tonight about it, and I'm glad I got my little rant out about this. Calling people racist at the slightest drop of a hat, you know, for every single thing, and using that was one thing that really gets my goat, and it kills the dialogue straight away, and without dialogue we're not going to move forward. Fortunately, us lovely guys here on this show, we do have a dialogue. We chat about anything we want to, which is what it's all about here on Axiom Flux. And so I'm going to wrap it up now and say thank you lads. PJ, Stav, Tower, Paul. I think Paul's gone. I think he's disappeared already. And we'll do it again sometime soon on Axiom Flux. Good night, folks, and God bless.